"You gave me steel, Blacksmith. Get ready, I claim you now," said the Apache fugitive woman. The desert town woke slowly under the soft light of early morning. Dust floated in the air as the wind moved through empty streets and quiet homes. At the edge of town, a small workshop stood with its wooden doors open. Inside, a blacksmith worked near a warm fire, shaping a piece of metal with calm and steady hands. The sound of the hammer was like a heartbeat for the town, steady and strong, a sound people trusted. He lived a simple life. He fixed broken tools, made horseshoes, and shaped small items for travelers who passed through. He did not ask many questions. He believed every person carried their own story, and not all stories were meant to be shared. His world was made of fire, metal, and quiet moments where he could think and breathe. That morning felt different, though he could not say why. The wind carried a strange feeling, like something new was about to step into his life. He paused, wiping sweat from his face, and looked out towards the open land beyond the town. Far in the distance, a lone figure moved slowly across the sand and dry grass. The figure stumbled, stopped, and then moved again. The blacksmith leaned closer, trying to see more clearly. It was a woman. Her steps were weak, and her body swayed as if she might fall at any moment. Without thinking too much, he stepped away from the fire and walked toward her. The heat from the workshop faded as the open land stretched in front of him. The woman collapsed just a few steps from the edge of town. Her clothes were torn, and dust covered her face and hair. Her breathing was slow but steady. Breath. He knelt beside her and gently touched her shoulder. She opened her eyes for a moment, fear and strength mixing in her tired gaze. She tried to speak, but no words came. Her hand reached out, as if searching for something to hold on to. Narration. "Easy," he said in a calm voice. "You're safe here." He lifted her carefully and carried her back to the workshop. He laid her on a clean cloth near the warm fire. Not too close, just enough to keep the cold away. He brought her water, lifting her head gently so she could drink. Her hands trembled as she held the cup. The woman did not say much. Julie watched him with careful eyes, like someone who had learned not to trust easily. The blacksmith could see the pain in her face, not just from the journey, but from something deeper, something that had followed her for a long time. As the sun climbed higher, people in the town began to notice the stranger in the workshop. Some slowed their steps to look. Some whispered to each other. A few shook their heads, already judging what they did not understand. The blacksmith felt their eyes, but he did not turn her away. He cleaned a small cut on her arm and gave her a piece of bread, brèche. She ate slowly, like someone who had not eaten in days. When she finished, she sat up, her back straight despite her tired body. "My people call me a runner," she said quietly. "Not because I like to run, but because I had to." He nodded, not pushing her to say more. "You can rest here," he replied. "No one will bother you while you are under my roof." Her eyes softened for just a moment. "You do not know what you are offering." "Maybe not," he said. "But I know what it means to help someone who needs it." The day passed slowly. The blacksmith returned to his work, but he stayed close. The woman watched him shape the metal, her eyes following every movement. The fire glowed, and sparks flew as the hammer struck the iron. She seemed drawn to the way something hard and cold could be changed into something useful and strong. "Fire can be kind," she said softly. "And it can be cruel." He smiled a little. "It depends on how you use it." Outside, the town continued its daily life, but a quiet tension hung in the air. Some people feared trouble would follow the woman. Others felt curiosity instead of fear. Children whispered about the stranger near the fire. Elders spoke in low voices about old stories and past struggles. As the sun began to set, the sky turned orange and red. The woman stood and walked to the door of the workshop. She looked out at the wide land, her face filled with both longing and worry. "I cannot stay forever," she said. "You can stay for tonight," the blacksmith answered, "but tomorrow can wait." She turned to him, studying his face like she was trying to understand what kind of man he was. "Why do you help me?" He thought for a moment. "Because someone once helped me when I had nothing. I promised myself I would do the same when I could." The woman nodded slowly, breaths. "Then maybe your fire and my road have crossed for a reason." Night fell, and the stars filled the sky. The workshop grew quiet. The blacksmith gave her a blanket and a place to rest. He sat near the door, watching the dark land beyond the town, listening to the sounds of the night. Somewhere far away, a howl echoed across the open space. The woman stirred in her sleep, her hand closing into a fist. The blacksmith tightened his grip on the wooden handle of a tool nearby, not in anger, but in promise. He did not know what the next day would bring. He did not know what past she carried or what future waited for them both. But as the fire's last glow faded into soft red light, he knew one thing clearly. Morning came slowly, with soft light touching the wooden walls of the workshop. The blacksmith woke before the sun, as he always did. The fire had gone quiet during the night, leaving only warm ash and a faint smell of smoke in the air. He stood, stretched his tired arms, and looked toward the woman resting on the blanket near the corner. She was already awake. Her eyes followed him as he moved, alert but calm. She sat up and pulled the blanket around her shoulders. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence felt gentle, not heavy. "You sleep lightly," he said. She nodded. "When you walk the open land for a long time, you learn to wake at every sound." He poured water into a small cup and handed it to her. She took it with both hands and drank slowly, like she wanted to remember the feeling of being safe. Outside, the town was starting to wake. A rooster called out. A door creaked open. Footsteps passed by on the dirt road. The blacksmith lit the fire again. The small flames grew, and soon the familiar warmth filled the space. He placed a piece of metal into the heat and waited, watching as it slowly changed color. The woman moved closer, sitting on a low wooden box near the fire. She studied the glowing metal with deep focus. "Back home," she said, "we use stone and bone. We shape what the land gives us. But this feels like pulling strength from the heart of the earth." He smiled at her words. "It is not so different. You listen to what the metal wants to become."
She looked at him with a small smile of her own. "You listen to people the same way." He did not answer, but he felt the truth in her words.
As the morning passed, people began to visit the workshop. A farmer came with a broken tool. A traveler needed a loose shoe fixed on his horse. The woman stepped back, standing near the wall, watching quietly. Some people glanced at her with curiosity. Some nodded politely. Others avoided looking at her at all. The blacksmith worked as usual, but he noticed how she moved. She kept her back straight, her eyes sharp, her body ready. She was not relaxed, even in safety. When the workshop grew quiet again, he handed her a small piece of bread and dried fruit. "If you like, you can help," he said. Rasps, only simple things. Sweeping, sorting tools. She hesitated, then nodded. She picked up a broom and began to clean the floor. Her movements were careful at first, like she did not want to make a mistake. But soon, she moved with more confidence. They worked side by side without many words. The sound of the broom and the hammer filled the space, steady and calm. Later, when the sun stood high in the sky, she sat down and rested. "My home was near the hills," she said suddenly. The wind was strong there. At night, we could hear it move through the grass like water. He listened, setting his tools down. "Bust, do you miss it?" "Every day," she replied. "But I could not stay." He did not ask why. He could see the answer in her eyes. In the afternoon, a group of children gathered near the door. They whispered and laughed, trying to peek inside. The woman noticed them and smiled softly. Breaths. One small boy stepped forward. "Are you really from the open land?" he asked. "I am." "Do you know how to track animals?" another child asked. Perspective, she laughed quietly. "I know how to listen to the ground." The blacksmith watched as she spoke with them, her voice gentle, her face warmer than he had seen before. The children sat on the ground, listening like she was telling a story from another world. For a moment the town felt smaller, closer, like the space between them all had faded, but that feeling did not last. Two strangers rode into town as the sun began to lower. Their horses were tired, and dust covered their coats. The blacksmith saw them from the corner of his eye. The woman did too. Her body went still. The riders stopped in the center of town and spoke with a few people. The blacksmith could not hear the words, but he could see the way heads turned toward the workshop. The woman stepped back, her hand tightening around the edge of the wooden box. "They are looking for someone," she said quietly. "Are they looking for you?" he asked. She did not answer right away. Then she nodded once. Breaths. He felt a weight settle in his chest. "You can leave," he said. "Frost, if you need to." She shook her head. "I am tired of running." The riders moved closer. The blacksmith stood at the doorway, his arms crossed, his face calm. The woman stayed behind him, her eyes watching through the small space beside his shoulder. The riders stopped a few steps away. One of them spoke.
"We're searching for a woman who passed through here. Dark hair."
Breath. Strong build. Quiet. The blacksmith met his gaze. Many people pass through here. The rider studied him. "We only want to talk." The woman stepped forward before the blacksmith could say anything else. "Then talk," she said. The town seemed to hold its breath. The rider looked surprised. "There you are." "I am not hiding," she replied. "I am resting." The blacksmith felt his heart beat faster, but he stayed still. Psst. The rider sighed. "You left people who care about you." She shook her head. "I left a place where I was not free." The rider looked at the ground for a moment, then back at her. "Come with us. We can fix this." She looked at the blacksmith. Then she looked at the children watching from a distance. Best. Then at the open land beyond the town. "No," she said softly. The rider nodded slowly. "Then you choose your own path." They turned their horses and rode away. The town began to breathe again. People whispered, "Bah, despise." Some looked relieved, others confused. The woman sat down, her hands shaking just a little. The blacksmith knelt beside her. "You don't have to face this alone," he said. She looked at him, and this time there was no fear in her eyes. only gratitude. As the sun set, they stood together at the doorway, watching the sky change colors. The road still stretched far and wide in front of her, but for the first time in a long while, she did not feel like she had to walk it alone. The next morning felt heavier than the ones before. The sky was clear, but the air carried a quiet tension that did not fade with the rising sun. The blacksmith woke early again, yet he stayed seated on his small stool, staring at the cold fire for a long time before lighting it. The woman was already awake, standing near the door and watching the road. Her eyes followed the empty path like she expected it to move on its own. "They may come back," she said without turning. "Maybe," he replied. "But today is still. We will live it." She nodded, though her shoulders stayed tight. The blacksmith lit the fire and the familiar warmth returned. The soft glow filled the workshop, chasing away the morning chill. He placed metal into the heat and waited, letting the steady work calm his thoughts. The woman picked up the broom again and began to sweep. The sound of the bristles against the dirt floor filled the space between them. "Bye."
After a while, she stopped. "When I was young," she said, "my mother told me that the land remembers every step you take."
"That is why we must walk with care." He tapped the metal gently, shaping it with slow strikes. "I think people remember steps too," he said. "Even the ones we wish they would forget." She looked at him, thoughtful. Do you have steps you wish were gone?" He paused. "Yes." She did not ask more. She seemed to understand that some things were not ready to be spoken. As the morning moved on, fewer people came to the workshop than usual. The town felt quiet, like everyone was waiting for something. The children did not come to listen to stories. The farmers did not bring tools. Even the birds seemed to stay away from the rooftops. Near midday, the woman stepped outside. She walked a short distance down the road, then stopped and turned back. The open land called to her, but she did not answer it. "I feel like I am standing between two worlds," she said when she returned. "The one I left and the one I don't yet belong to." The blacksmith set his tools down. "You belong where you choose to stand." She studied him. "And where do you stand?" He smiled a little. "Right here, with the fire and the road." They shared a quiet moment, both looking at the glowing coals. In the afternoon, clouds began to gather in the distance. The sky darkened slightly, and the wind picked up, carrying dust through the streets. The woman tied her hair back, her movements quick and sharp. "This wind brings change," she said. The blacksmith felt it too, though he could not explain how. Later, a man from the town came running toward the workshop. His face was pale, and his breath came fast. "More riders," he said. They stopped near the old well. The woman went still. The blacksmith stood. Breaths. "How many?" "3," the man replied. "They are asking about a woman who stayed here." The man left as quickly as he came. The workshop felt smaller suddenly, like the walls had moved closer. The woman looked at the back door, the one that led toward the open land.
"I can go," she said. "I don't want trouble to fall on you."
The blacksmith shook his head. "Running does not always lead to peace." She stepped closer to him. "Neither does staying." He met her eyes. "But staying gives us a chance." She took a deep breath. "Then I will stay." They walked together to the front of the workshop. The wind pushed against them, tugging at their clothes. The riders appeared at the end of the road, moving slowly. Their faces were hard to read. The town watched from doorways and windows, silent and still. The riders stopped a few steps away. One of them spoke. "We were told you might be here." The woman stepped forward. "I am here." The rider looked at her carefully. "You left a place that needed you." She replied calmly, "I left a place that would not hear me." The rider sighed.
There are people who worry about you. There are people who want to decide my life for me, she said.
Breath. The blacksmith stood beside her, his presence steady and quiet. The rider glanced at him. "This does not concern you," the blacksmith answered. "Anyone who stands in my doorway concerns me." The town murmured softly. The rider paused, then nodded. "We do not wish to cause trouble. We only want to understand." The woman spoke. "Then listen. I did not leave because I wanted to. I left because I was told my voice did not matter. I was told my path was already chosen." Narration.
The rider looked down. Sometimes paths are chosen to keep people safe, and sometimes they are chosen to keep people small, she replied.
The wind blew between them, carrying dust and leaves. After a long moment, the rider stepped back. "We cannot force you," he said, "but the road will always be there." She nodded. "But I know." The riders turned and left, their figures slowly fading into the distance. The town let out a breath it did not know it was holding. Birth. The woman's legs weakened, and she sat down on the step of the workshop. The blacksmith joined her.
"Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" he asked.
"For standing where I stood." They sat in silence, watching the clouds drift across the sky. As evening came, rain began to fall lightly. The drops hit the ground, turning dust into dark patches of earth. The sound was soft and steady, like a slow drum. The woman held out her hand, letting the rain touch her skin.
It has been a long time since I stood in the rain without fear.
The blacksmith smiled. "It cleans more than just the ground. The workshop filled with the smell of wet earth and warm metal. Later that night they shared a simple meal by the fire. The flames danced on the walls, casting moving shadows." Desk. She told him stories of her childhood, of running through tall grass and laughing with her family. He told her about learning the craft from an old man who believed every tool carried a piece of the maker's heart. Breaths. They laughed softly, the sound easy and real. When the fire burned low, she stood and walked to the door. The night sky was clear again, stars shining bright. "I don't know what tomorrow will bring," she said. "But neither do I," he replied. "But we will meet it the same way we met today." She nodded. Together. She lay down to rest, her breathing slow and calm. The blacksmith stayed awake a while longer, listening to the night. He thought about roads and fires, about voices and choices, about how two lives had crossed in a small workshop at the edge of a quiet town. He realized something then. This was no longer just her journey. It was his too. The morning opened with clear skies and a cool breeze that moved gently through the town. The blacksmith stood outside his workshop, breathing in the fresh air. The ground still held the smell of rain from the night before, and small puddles reflected the soft light of the rising sun. Inside, the woman was awake, folding the blanket she had used. Her movements were calm now, not rushed or tense like before. She stepped outside and looked around, as if seeing the town with new eyes.
It feels different today, she said. He nodded.
The day after rain always does. They shared a quiet smile.
As the morning went on, people began to return to their usual routines.
A farmer came with a bent tool. A woman brought a broken handle from her door. The children slowly crept back to the open space near the workshop, whispering and laughing like they used to. The woman stood near the doorway watching the town move around her. Some people still looked at her with unsure faces, but others nodded or smiled. A few even said, "Good morning." One of the children walked up to her and held out a small wildflower. "For you," the child said. She took it carefully as if it were something very precious. "Thank you," she replied, her voice soft. The blacksmith saw her hold the flower and place it behind her ear. For the first time, she looked less like someone passing through, and more like someone who belonged. Later that morning, an elder from the town arrived. He walked slowly, leaning on a wooden stick. His face was lined with years of sun and wind. He stopped in front of the workshop and looked at both of them. "I hear the road has been busy," he said. The woman met his eyes. "The road is always busy." The elder nodded. "But not everyone who walks it is running. Some are searching." She thought about that. Breath.
"And some are trying to find a place to stop."
The elder smiled. "Then perhaps this town needs to decide what kind of place it wants to be."
He turned to the blacksmith.
"Your fire has always been open to anyone who needs it. That says something about you. And about us, if we let it." With that he walked away, leaving his words hanging in the air. The woman looked at the blacksmith. "Do you think they will ever fully accept me?"
He answered honestly.
"Not everyone, but some already have." She nodded. "Sometimes some is enough." As the sun climbed higher, she asked if she could learn more about his work. He showed her how to hold a small tool and shape a thin piece of metal. Her hands were careful but strong. She focused deeply, like she did not want to waste a single moment. "It feels like guiding a river," she said. "You don't force it. You just help it find its way," he laughed softly. But that might be the best way I've ever heard it explained. They worked together side by side, shaping a simple hook. It was not perfect, but it was solid. When they finished, she held it up with pride. "I made something that will last." "Yes," he said, "and something that can help." The afternoon brought warm sunlight and long shadows. A group of townspeople gathered near the workshop. Some came with small items to fix.
Others just came to talk. The woman found herself sitting with a few of them, listening to stories about the town's past.
She shared small pieces of her own story, too. Not the hard parts, but the gentle ones. Stories about the wind in the hills, the sound of footsteps on grass, and nights under open skies. People listened. One man said, "It sounds peaceful." "It was," she replied. "And sometimes it still can be, even far from home." The blacksmith watched her as she spoke, seeing how her voice had changed. It was no longer quiet and guarded. It was steady and open. Narration. As evening approached, clouds began to gather again, but this time they stayed high and light. The air felt calm. The woman stood and looked toward the road once more.
"I used to think the road was my only friend," she said.
"Now I see it can also be a choice." The blacksmith joined her. A choice to leave, or a choice to return. She smiled. Or a choice to stay. A soft sound of music drifted from the far end of town. Someone was playing a simple tune on a small instrument. The sound carried gently through the air. The woman closed her eyes for a moment, letting the music wash over her. We used to play songs at night back home, she said. Everyone would sit close and share food and stories. The blacksmith said, Maybe this town can learn to do that too. She looked at him. Maybe it already is. That night, a few people gathered near the workshop. Someone brought bread.
Bess. Brow. Someone else brought a pot of warm soup. The children sat on the ground, swinging their legs and laughing.
The woman sat among them, not apart. She listened, smiled, and shared quiet words. The blacksmith felt something shift inside him. The workshop was no longer just a place of work. It was becoming a place where people came to connect. Later, when most had gone home, the woman and the blacksmith stayed by the fading fire.
I never thought I would feel like this again, she said.
But like I could rest without looking over my shoulder.
He answered, You earned that feeling. You chose it. She stared into the coals.
What if one day I feel the pull of the road again? He shrugged gently. Then you will walk it. Bah. And if you ever come back, the fire will still be here.
Her eyes softened.
You make it sound simple. Some things are, he said. Even if they don't feel like it at first. She stood and looked at the stars above. Bess. They shone bright and steady, like they had every night. My people used to say the stars are the stories of those who walked before us, she said. Desperation. They remind us we are never truly alone. He looked up too. Then I hope our story finds its way up there one day, she smiled. I think it already has. She lay down to rest, her breathing slow and peaceful. The blacksmith stayed awake for a while, listening to the quiet sounds of the town. A door closing. A soft laugh in the distance. Brush. The wind brushing against the walls. He realized the town was changing just a little. And so was he. When he finally lay down, he felt a calm he had not known in a long time. Tomorrow would come with its own questions and choices. The morning sun rose slowly, spreading soft gold light across the town and the open land beyond it. The blacksmith stepped outside his workshop and felt the warmth on his face. The air was calm, and the wind that once carried worry now carried only the smell of dry grass and distant hills. Inside, the woman was awake, sitting quietly with her hands resting on her knees. She looked peaceful, like someone who had finally found a place where her thoughts could rest. Today feels like a beginning, she said. He nodded. Sometimes endings and beginnings look the same. They just depends on how you walk into them. They shared a small smile. As the day moved forward, the town felt alive in a new way. People came not only to fix tools or buy simple items, but to talk. Some brought food, others brought stories. The workshop had become more than a place of fire and metal. It had become a place where people felt welcome. The woman found herself helping in ways she never expected. She carried water for an older neighbor. She sat with a child who had scraped a knee and told a gentle story to make the tears stop. She listened when a woman spoke about missing her family who lived far away. Each small moment tied her closer to the town. The blacksmith watched all of this quietly.
He saw how the woman moved through the day with calm strength.
But she do not know. Rants. She no longer stood in doorways, ready to leave. She stood in the open, ready to stay. Later in the afternoon, the elder returned. He leaned on his wooden stick and looked around the workshop, now filled with soft laughter and the smell of warm bread. "It seems your fire has grown," he said to the blacksmith. The blacksmith smiled.
It burns brighter when more people stand around it.
The elder turned to the woman.
And what do you think of this place now?
She took a moment before answering. I think it feels like a place where stories can rest instead of run. The elder nodded slowly. Then perhaps it is becoming what it needs to be. As the sun lowered, painting the sky in soft orange and pink, the woman walked towards the edge of town. The road stretched out in front of her, wide and open, just as it always had. The blacksmith followed her. They stood side by side, watching the land. I used to think this road was my only home, she said.
Every step felt like it was pushing me forward, even when I wanted to stop. And now? He asked. Now it feels like a choice, she replied.
Not a push, not a pull, just a path. She turned to him.
Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't stepped out that first morning?
He laughed softly.
I do.
But I think the answer would not be as good as what we have now.
She nodded. I think you're right. They walked back to the workshop together.
That evening, the town gathered again. Someone lit a small fire outside. People sat in a loose circle, sharing food and quiet laughter. The children played nearby, chasing each other under the fading light. The woman sat next to the blacksmith. She felt something warm in her chest, something steady and real. One of the townspeople began to tell an old story about how the town was first built, how a few tired travelers decided to stop and make a home instead of continuing on. The story felt familiar, like it was being told again, in a new way. The woman listened closely. When the story ended, she spoke. Break. Maybe this town was always meant to be a place where people stop running, the blacksmith said, or a place where people learn how to walk forward without fear. Night came gently. The stars filled the sky, bright and endless. Later, when the crowd slowly went home, the woman and the blacksmith stayed by the quiet fire. I don't know what the future looks like, she said. Neither do I, he replied. But I know how today felt. Breaths. And that's a good place to start. Apache reached into her small bag and pulled out a simple object made of stone, smooth and worn. This is from my home, she said. I carried it with me on every step of the road. She held it out to him. He hesitated. Are you sure? She nodded. I don't need to carry the road with me anymore. I need to carry the place I chose. He took the stone carefully, understanding what it meant. The next morning, the woman woke early and stepped outside alone. The sky was still dark, just beginning to lighten at the edges. She walked to the road one last time. She stood there, listening to the quiet, feeling the earth beneath her feet. She closed her eyes and breathed in the air, the land, the stillness. Then she turned back. The blacksmith was standing at the workshop door, watching her. She walked toward him, her steps slow and sure.
I'm staying, she said. He smiled.
I hoped you would, but I would have respected you either way. She nodded.
That's why I can stay. Days turned into weeks. The woman became a part of the town in ways both small and big.
She helped with gardens, learned the names of the streets, and found her place among the people. The blacksmith continued his work, but now he had someone beside him, not just in the workshop, but in life. They did not rush anything. They let time shape their connection the way fire shapes metal. Slowly and carefully. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, the woman said, You gave me a place to stop. He replied, You gave me a reason to look beyond the fire. They stood together watching the sky change colors. The town, the road, the workshop, and the open land all felt like part of one story now, not separate pieces. And in that small place at the edge of the world, Two lives that once moved in different directions had found a shared path.
Not because they were forced to,